Hi there, I'm Peter Millard, and in the workshop this week, well, I want to talk to you about money. It's coming up next. So when I put out my shelves for tools video where I try to get the price of the tools used for the job out of the price of the job recently, I got an awful lot of pushback from people who seemed to think I was overcharging for a set of shelves. The word rip-off merchant was used more than once, and I've tried to explain it as well as I can, and perhaps I didn't explain it very well to start with, but really all it wasn't this particular job, but something like this fairly sort of basic piece of MDF furniture that I make. I did one of these, and it occurred to me that I'd been using thousands of pounds worth of tools to make this thing that was only actually earning me a few £100. And it was just an idea to flip that whole process on its head and try and get the price of the tools that you're using out of the job. Just a fun little idea. I thought it worked quite well. I think most people thought it worked quite well. But certainly a lot of people didn't quite understand the process behind how you price that kind of thing. Now I've just finished one of these. This is one of these console tables that I make for my interior designer client. If you saw the Let's Talk Again chatty little sort of vlog style thing all the way through to the end, you'll have seen the build of this and you've seen what goes into it and what's involved. I can't talk prices specifically about this piece because it's for a client and it's their design, so I'm just the spanner twirling monkey putting it together. But it's not dissimilar to what I was charging for that painted set of shelves. It's much more involved, but then all I'm doing is building it, I'm not painting it. And it occurred to me that maybe it might be a good idea to actually go through the tools that I used for this job and give you the same ka-ching every time I pick one up and show how much it cost, because it might be a bit of an eye-opener. The other thing as well is that I posted a quick picture to Instagram of I've mentioned it before, my bench of shame. You don't often get to see that because obviously you see what's in front of the camera, but what's behind the camera. In fact, let me show you. Move you around a little bit. Yeah, this is my bench of shame. This is basically all the tools here that I used to produce this job. So why don't we, while I'm clearing up and clearing out, why don't we go through those and actually see what they all cost? Let me get this out of the way first though. All right, so let's go through these one at a time. We'll start where we finish with the finishing sander. Little 5-inch 125mm ETS 125, small stroke 2mm or 2.5mm, literally a finishing sander with a P320 on this. It almost polishes the cut edges of that MDF. You can spray straight onto that really easily. It's not my job to do the sprayers prep for them, but by making their life a little bit easier, they may well do me a favour down the line as well. So first sander, we'll come to the prices later on. Okay, next up, we've got a Festool Rotex 90. This is the smallest Rotex. I was using this to level off the base of the legs, the feet if you like. It's very easy to sort of make those crown, and by concentrating on the inside first and then coming around to the edges, you can actually control that a little bit better when you're just trying to shave a fraction of a millimetre off to level the legs up. So very useful again. I also use the bigger Rotex, the 125 on this. I use this at the beginning where the boards come together. You obviously get a glue line, you get some glue squeeze out of that. I tend to let that dry and scrape it off and just take it off as much as I can, just with the gear driven sander, the Rotex, just because it cleans up the glue, and then you can get on with a full-sized random orbital sander just to clean that up properly. Talking of which, ETS 155, so 6-inch, 5mm stroke, random orbital. One of the most useful sanders you can have. Again, it's perfect for going all the way up and down those legs that are 100mm. Technically you can do it with a 125, but having 150mm means you can move it side to side slightly and still stay completely flat as you go up and down that leg or along the sides. Very important. It's very easy to round those over slightly, so having a 6-inch 150mm base really helps keep it flat. Again, one of the most used sounders. We have the Domino, of course, Festool Domino with the Domi plate. Where would I be without this? Well, I'd probably be using a Lamello Zeta P. Lamello Zeta P is a fancy pants biscuit joiner which does really clever connections. It almost cuts a sort of a T-slot for the connectors to go in Tenso or Clamex connectors. A really fancy one of those, but they are £1,300. Makes this seem like a bargain at only $650. Yep. Saw, of course, venerable TS55 Festool plunge saw, one of a few that I have. Wouldn't imagine being without one of these unless it was a Maffel, perhaps. But yeah, plunge saw, you know, absolute workhorse. Then we've got drills. What's this? This is a T18, so relatively small, lightweight drill driver. Not a hammer drill, no percussive action on it at all. But again, another workhorse. And also I've got an older T15, which is a little bit underpowered in comparison, and around about the same weight, to be honest. I think they've basically dropped the 15-volt stuff now, and they're just concentrating on 18. A few benefits of this one. Has a light on it, whereas this one didn't, and I wouldn't buy another drill without it. But again, a drill and a driver saves time, but it does mean you've got to have two pieces. Yeah, and you might have seen me use the little belt sander. Don't use this much, but I used it just for beveling the ends of the dominoes on a big glue up like this, where you've got 20 dominoes in each leg and each sort of end piece. You don't want one of those jamming, so I always bevel the ends. Just makes life easier. But again, you've got to have something to do that with, and using a belt sander makes that quicker and easier. So that's the reality of it. Over £3,000 worth of tools on this bench, just to make a table like this. It doesn't generate not even a quarter of that in revenue. That doesn't include, of course, any of the infrastructure, so not the extractors, not the rails, either extractors, not the clamps. Over 40 clamps were used at any one time to clamp this up during the glue up. And obviously you don't have to do that, but if you want to be able to produce something like this relatively quickly, not much more than a day build, then you've got to have the gear to do it. You've got to speculate to accumulate, you've got to spend some money to make some money. Or you can flip that all on its head and try and get the cost of the tools you use out of the job and just accept that it takes longer to do. I'm doing it this way because I need to work faster in order to keep going, to carry on making a living. So there we are. That's pretty much the scale of it, really. Yep, that's the number, the quantity, the cost of the tools that I had to make this relatively simple little table, this little build. I don't have to use Festool tools, of course. I could use the expensive Lamello ones instead. But that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. I hope you found it interesting, and I'll see you next time. Take care.